Welcome to the analysis of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and 358 over 2 days. It's easy to write these stories off as not being that important because they're handheld games, and you definitely can proceed without them and get most of the story in the main games, but you do really miss a lot, especially about Organization 13 and the motivation of some of the nobodies. The handheld platforms limited the amount of new worlds they could use, so the games do retread a lot of old areas, but what they're really good for is character building, and they do actually share a lot of themes, which is why we're doing both in one video. So we're going to go over the main themes first and then focus on individual characters. The first major theme, and this may surprise you, is memories. Memories are one of the building blocks of identity. Your past experiences form the base of who you are. If you've ever known anyone with dementia, Alzheimer's, or another memory disorder, you know how difficult it is to watch, how much it shapes someone's personality in their life, the way that it can slowly eat away at them. Memories are a huge part of who we are and who we think we are, and when that gets taken away, there's a huge change. Even before these two games, memory has been used all over the place in Kingdom Hearts. Characters frequently lose their memories, reducing them to a blank state where they can be built up again in new or surprising ways. One of the central mysteries of the series is how real Xehanort's memory loss was after he took over Terra's body. If he truly had no memories, it makes his eventual fall to darkness tragic and inevitable, but there's a chance he was faking and everything went according to his plans from the start. Either one would change the way that you see that part of the story a little. So let's talk a little more about how memory relates to identity. We've discussed before how identity is one of, if not the biggest theme of Kingdom Hearts that goes through every game. And Chain of Memories and Dizz both look at identity through the loss and gain of memories. This is done to some extent with Sora, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but the main way this is done is through the nobodies. Remember, according to most people in the Kingdom Hearts universe, especially Dizz and even the nobodies themselves, nobodies don't actually exist. They're not considered real people because they don't have hearts, and hearts are the core of your being. But is that really true? Is your existence just based on your heart? If you woke up tomorrow with no heart but you still remembered who you were, would you still consider yourself to be you? When they're created, because the human type nobodies don't have hearts, they don't have emotions. What they do have is memories. For the most part, they seem to remember most of their pasts, and this is what they base their personality on. When they show emotion or individuality, they're really acting the way that they remember themselves acting when they were whole. The nobodies seem to consider themselves a continuation of who they were before, but still somehow incomplete in a way that they feel invalidates their very existence. And there's no real clear answer here. Whether or not having all the same memories makes you the same person is never really resolved. But this introduces another major theme that Kingdom Hearts is going to explore from here on out. How do you define existence? We're going to be seeing more and more characters whose existence will be called into question. Is a person made of data real? Can they have a heart? Where do you draw the line between real beings in a universe with magic, heartless, genies, fairies, and dream monsters? The answer, spoiler, is that everyone can have a heart, everyone is real, and everyone matters. It's Kingdom Hearts, it's how we roll. But these are questions that the characters in-universe are going to be dealing with. Let's talk about the individual stories. As a note, it's good to remember that while we're covering the story chronologically, when we're analyzing the story we have to take into account release order. The order the games were released, which is the way you should play them if you're going for the first time, determines the way that the story is presented. So for an example, while we've covered the organization to a good extent, when you're playing Chain of Memories you're meant to be seeing them for the first time. Chain of Memories is about taking away memories to get to the core of who you are. What if you don't remember what used to be important to you? What if your memories aren't real? If you tear away all the things that you build around yourself, what's left at the center of who you are? In this story, Nominee makes the case that even if you change someone's memories, there's some buried in their heart that can never be erased. This is important because later when characters are forgotten like Nominee herself and Xion, we've been told that there's something still inside that can never go away. And although this is a game about Sora, really the stars of Chain of Memories are the organization. This is your first introduction to the organization, and the mystery of who they are and what they want is one of the major points of the story. It's only later when you go back through this story knowing about them that you truly understand the internal struggle that's going on, especially the way that Axel is acting. This gives the story a lot of layers and makes it a really good one to revisit, seeing how many hints of the future are being planted. The story of 358 over 2 days is about individuality and what happens if you have no memories or if memories are all you have. So like we said before, nobodies build their identity off their memory. It's what links them to their past life that they want to recover and become whole again. But unlike the other members, Roxas has no memories, so he has to build his personality from the ground up. Meanwhile, Xion is made of memories, stealing them from Sora who won't be able to wake up without them. While Roxas is experiencing everything for the first time, Xion is well aware of the fact that she's made up of memories and it tortures her because they're not her own. In both cases, their relationship with each other and with Axel is what builds up their personality. Narratively, this game is about showing us more of the organization in a less dramatic way. We get to see their day-to-day operations, what they're like as people, and we get inside their heads in a way that the narrative of Kingdom Hearts 2, which you'll have experienced before playing this, doesn't have time to really show. Nomura wanted to show a peaceful day-to-day life and how the drama of Roxas, Shion, and Axel develops gradually over time. Taking the huge, world-changing stakes out of most of the story allows you to see the organization members more as people than just villains. So let's move on to some specific characters. First up is Sora. There's actually not too much going on with Sora in this story. He takes kind of a backseat so we can see some of the other characters. However, like we said, in Chain of Memories, they're tearing away everything that he has so we can see what he's like at his core. And surprise surprise, Sora at his core is a really good dude. Sora doesn't have it in him to see someone in trouble and not try to help. He spends most of this game tortured about forgetting Nominee. The idea that he would have a friend that he made a promise to and wouldn't keep goes against everything he believes in. And notice, when he finds out that those memories were fake, he's not mad. In fact, he decides to keep the promise he made to Nominee even though it wasn't real. Where Xehanort sees no real value in lives other than his own, Sora sees every life as valuable and worth protecting. Riku's story is about trying to pick up the pieces after what happened in Kingdom Hearts 1. He's gone pretty much as low as he can go, betraying his friends and giving himself to darkness. And though initially he thinks that he has to fight the darkness with everything he has, he finds out that he can actually use it. He can embrace that part of himself and become stronger as a whole. This is of course significant because it's a reversal of what happened to Terra. Like Terra, Riku was taken advantage of. He was manipulated into using his darkness thinking that he was doing the right thing. But where Aqua failed to save Terra from his darkness, Sora was able to save Riku, which was of course what Aqua wanted when she talked to Sora back on the Destiny Islands. This enables Riku to go where Terra couldn't, to be able to use the darkness to balance the light. This is going to make him completely unique in the world of Kingdom Hearts, and it's going to give him a really cool role going forward. Of course, even though it looks like things are pretty much under control at the end of Chain of Memories, in Dizz we see that he's actually having some trouble with it. The dark part of him is still really strong, and he's going to have to do a little more work before he can get it under control. For now, he's calling himself Ansem because he doesn't quite know what Riku really means anymore, and that forms the basis of his journey through Kingdom Hearts 2. Replica is a clone of Riku, which gives him all sorts of identity issues. At first, he knows he's not the real Riku, which is its own kind of torture. Later on, he gets forced to have Riku's memory so he thinks he is Riku, which is again the story playing with memory. If you have a copy of someone's body and all their memories, are you that person? Unfortunately, Replica is never really able to reconcile the different parts of him. Even though he gets his memories back, he's never able to really find an identity, and so he gets destroyed by the real Riku. And while he does seem to get some comfort at the end, he never really found his place. Now let's talk about sweet baby Nominee. There are a lot of really sad characters in Kingdom Hearts. In fact, thus far, almost every character introduced has had a really tragic story. But for me, none of them compare to Nominee's. Nominee is born into a world where she's all alone. The first people she actually does meet hold her captive and make her do things she doesn't really want to do. Her first opportunity at having a real friend is Sora, and she actually has to manipulate his memories to make that possible. Although it's a pretty messed up thing to do, Nominee kind of likes it. She likes having someone actually care about her even if it's not really real. And that's what makes Sora forgiving her so bittersweet. She finally has a real friend, but he's going to have to forget her. Although Nominee knows that Sora's going to choose to get his old memories back, I think there was a part of her that really thought he might stay, which makes an already heartbreaking scene all the more tragic. The thing that differentiates Nominee from Roxas and Shion is that Nominee knows inherently what she is. She knows that she's Kairi's nobody and that she's never going to be the real Kairi. And she knows that at some point she's going to have to go back to Kairi and cease existing. Of course, once she's free from the organization, she ends up with Dizz, and he really doesn't treat her any better than they did. He doesn't even believe she exists, so he doesn't care about what she feels, and he's fine with casually ordering her destruction when he has no use for her anymore. Speaking of Dizz, this is where he starts his road to revenge. Dizz has been exiled for a long time, and all he's really thought about is getting back at the people who did this to him. Unfortunately, he doesn't take any of that time to reflect on any of his past mistakes. Although his apprentices did betray him, he was the one that put them on that path. Trying to quantify the heart to make it into data rather than letting it be emotion, Dizz has a one-track mind and no perspective. Although there is plenty of clear evidence that nobodies can get hearts back, the idea has never occurred to Dizz, and so he doesn't believe in it. Because of this, he underestimates the nobodies again and again, failing to understand them because it's easier for him to see them as people who don't really exist. The futility of revenge is one of the oldest tropes in storytelling, and we're going to see that come into play with Dizz later in the story. It's going to be a while before this guy even starts to get redemption. Like Nominee, Roxas is unique among the nobodies. He has no memories of his past, so he has to build up his personality from a blank state. His friendship with Shion, Axel, and the other members of the organization allow him to develop a sense of individuality that none of them can really share. Unfortunately, he's not in a position to really appreciate that. All he wants to know is where he came from and who he used to be. What's special about Roxas is that, like Nominee, he's coexisting with his other. Where the other organization members see themselves as continuations of who they used to be, Roxas is someone entirely new. And that's really cool, but it's also what makes Roxas tragic. We know that eventually he's going to have to go back to Sora. He's going to have to give up his individuality and become part of something else. In the end, Roxas only really starts to find out about himself right before he goes back to Sora. He gets just enough time believing he was a regular kid to know what he's giving up when he makes the decision to go back. But there is a sense of inevitability in Roxas' story, and I think he senses that at the end too. Shion's story is pretty similar. She also wants to know who she is, but the difference is she actually learns pretty early on. Unfortunately, it really doesn't help. If the nobodies don't really exist, what is a clone of a nobody? She's made up of someone else's memories entirely, and the people that made her see her as nothing more than a puppet. For most of the game, Shion is trying to make a choice about who she wants to be. She wants to be her own person, but she's also not sure if that's what she deserves, or even if it's really possible. Riku wants her to go back to Sora by choice, but that's not an easy decision to make. Shion struggles with it for almost the entire game, until at the end she decides that she can't really fight her fate. She allows Xemnas to take control of her, not because she's feeling spiteful, but because she doesn't think she has a choice. She feels like her destiny is to be used by the organization. At the same time, she really wants Roxas to defeat her. Shion was well aware that she, Sora, and Roxas couldn't all coexist. While she was around, Sora could never get his memories back, and Roxas was only going to grow weaker and weaker. This only made Shion more conflicted about whether her existence was really worth anything. Of course, being made of memories, once Shion is gone, everyone forgets her, which is quite possibly the grimmest fate I can think of for someone. While we have been told by Nominee that some memories can never really go away even if they seem like they're gone, for now Shion is, in the purest sense of the word, nobody. Last, but most certainly not least, is Axel. Axel has perhaps the most fun and interesting arc in all of Kingdom Hearts. We first meet him as a kind of charismatic villain, but as Chain of Memories goes on, you begin to get the idea that he may not be entirely against you. And the more we find out, the more we see that it's kind of true and kind of not. Eventually, we come to find out that in Chain of Memories, Axel is actually a triple agent. He's pretending to work with Marilucia, while really working for Xemnas, while really working for him and Saïx. Axel has a lot of layers, and his personality makes it kind of difficult to know what he's really thinking. And as we see when he comes back from Castle Oblivion, even he's not entirely sure whose side he's on. Though he initially seems to be all in on his mission with Saïx, he does seem to harbor a lot of guilt for taking out his comrades. For me, it's really heartbreaking watching his friendship with Saïx degrade over the course of days. They're two people who are starting to go in different directions, while clinging desperately to a friendship that's clearly crumbling. The failing of Axel and Saïx is that neither really understands what's going on with the other. Saïx can't empathize with Axel's indecisiveness, nor the growing emotion that's a result of him spending time with Roxas and Shion. In fact, he sees it as a hindrance. At the same time, Axel can't understand why Saïx is growing so cold and distant, which we know we can attribute at least to some extent to Xehanort's influence. Their inability to have a real conversation about what's going on with them ultimately destroys their friendship. This leaves Axel in kind of a strange position. His ultimate goal has always been to overthrow the organization with Saïx, but he doesn't know if that's actually viable anymore, or if it's even really what he wants. Shion and Roxas present a friendship to him that isn't about goals, it's not about plans and getting something from each other. It's simple, uncomplicated. It's just about spending time with someone that makes you happy. In light of that, it's easy to see why Axel holds them so dear, and why he's so hurt when Roxas leaves. It's especially nice to go back through the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 once you've played Dizz, because while playing Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time, you don't really know why Axel is so eager to get Roxas back. Once you've seen how their friendship developed, and the sad, almost anticlimactic way that it ended, it's easy to understand why Axel is so hurt, and losing that friend and his own place in the world plays heavily into how his character develops from here on out. So that's my analysis of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and 358 over 2 days. Hopefully you learned something and got some new perspectives on the story, but if you have any questions, comments, or points of discussion, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, you can hit the subscribe button to know when new ones come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.